This is Ryosuke Kaga, who I call Riz Lord Ryuk. As his name implies, he exists only to clap cheeks. He even met an alien, and guess what he wanted to do? You guessed it. What do you think is going to happen if you make a Riz Lord a hero? Let's find out. The story starts with Riz Lord Ryuk, a professional grade pervert and a second-year high school student at Mamaso Academy. This absolute disgrace to humanity survives off his mother's monthly allowance and spends his days staring at girls, especially his childhood friend Mina. According to his expert level of observation, which is just a fancy way of saying he's a creep, Mina's big juicy water jugs seem to be growing at an alarming rate. One day, on his way home from school, Riz Lord Ryuk spots a girl standing in the rain. She's soaked, her clothes sticking to her body, revealing what she's wearing underneath. Now, as a gentleman, not a pervert of course, Riz Lord Ryuk does what any good human being would do. He rushes over, offers her his umbrella and invites her to his house to dry off. And guess what? She actually agrees. Riz Lord Ryuk, the man who has never spoken to a girl without making her uncomfortable, has somehow convinced one to come home with him. After getting the girl inside, Riz Lord Ryuk is hit with a plot twist straight out of a horror movie. She knows everything about him. She tells him that he's the one she's been looking for. Before Riz Lord Ryuk's overcooked brain can even process what's happening, the girl lunges at him. For the first time in his miserable life, Riz Lord Ryuk feels something stir inside him. But before he can enjoy the moment, the girl whips out a knife from nowhere and stabs him like she's carving a Thanksgiving turkey. And just like that, Riz Lord Ryuk drops dead on the spot. Lisa, the mysterious girl, doesn't waste any time. She casually strips Riz Lord Ryuk's lifeless body because, well, why not? After giving him a thorough cleaning and playing around with the dog like this is some slice-of-life anime, she finally realizes that this idiot still hasn't woken up. Annoyed by his uselessness, Lisa tells him to wake up. Turns out, Riz Lord Ryuk wasn't actually unconscious. He was just pretending so he could stare at Lisa while she was bathing. Truly, a legend in degeneracy. Realizing his perverted plan, Lisa decides to reward Riz Lord Ryuk with a well-aimed knee to the face. Riz Lord Ryuk, instead of feeling pain, experiences peak happiness. This is the first time he's ever seen that so clearly, and from his current angle, he still has a perfect view. While Riz Lord Ryuk is busy being a human security camera, something inside him activates, and all the energy in his body transfers to Lisa. And just like that, he drops dead, again. Lisa, now beyond irritated, grabs Riz Lord Ryuk by the collar and demands to know what in the world he just did. Since talking is easier than strangling, the two move to the living room. Here, Riz Lord Ryuk is forced to kneel on the floor like a criminal on trial, while Lisa relaxes on the couch like she owns the place. She then drops another bombshell. She's a grim reaper from the world of the dead. Riz Lord Ryuk hears this and does what any rational person would do. He laughs in her face. But since Lisa has the patience of a toddler, she shuts him up with another well-placed kick. Lisa explains that earlier, when she stabbed him, she actually used her broken sword to pierce his soul. That's why he didn't have any physical injuries. She also reveals that she made a temporary contract with him, linking their souls together. Riz Lord Ryuk, thinking this might be his chance to escape the Forever Alone Club, gets a little too excited. But before he can even breathe a word of his filthy thoughts, Lisa smashes another kick into his mouth. Lisa then gets to the real issue. Coming to the human world drains a lot of her energy, so to recover, she took some from Riz Lord Ryuk. But before they can even argue about this ridiculous contract, a monster with way too many tentacles, you already know where this is going, crashes through the wall. Seeing this, Lisa transforms into her Grim Reaper form, summoning a giant scythe. But despite looking cool, she immediately gets wrapped up in the hentai horror scene playing out before them. The fight completely destroys Riz Lord Ryuk's house, which is tragic because he still hasn't finished paying off the mortgage. The situation gets worse when it turns out that the tentacles are covered in acid, melting Lisa's clothes right off. Riz Lord Ryuk, being the absolute menace that he is, doesn't even think about saving her. He just stares like he's watching a high-quality Blu-ray movie. But then, with the power of pure degeneracy, he grabs Lisa's big juicy water jugs, and somehow, this triggers a magical reaction. All the surrounding energy floods into Lisa's bracelet, restoring her strength. Fully powered, she slices the monster into nothing with a single swing. Lisa is absolutely shocked that she recovered so fast. After inspecting Riz Lord Ryuk, they discover that his energy is fueled by his perversion. That's right. Every time this human disgrace does something inappropriate, he generates insane amounts of power. If that isn't divine punishment in action, I don't know what is. Riz Lord Ryuk, instead of feeling ashamed, proudly declares that from now on, he'll be even more of a pervert to help Lisa. Lisa, horrified, immediately shuts that idea down with another swift kick to his pathetic excuse of a face. Lisa then tells Riz Lord Ryuk that she's actually here to find a powerful soul, someone known as the Exceptional One. When such a person dies, their soul can be absorbed to increase a Grim Reaper's rank. First, in other words, Riz Lord Ryuk is just an energy drink to keep her going until she finds the real deal. Also, she makes it crystal clear that he won't be getting any benefits from this contract. Riz Lord Ryuk, realizing he won't be leveling up from loser to lover, tries to back out of the deal, but Lisa has one final revelation. He only has 3 months left to live. Since Lisa is a Grim Reaper, she can see the lifespan of every human. Riz Lord Ryuk's fate is already sealed, and he's basically a walking expiration date. After hearing this, all the stupid ideas in his head vanish. The room falls silent as reality sinks in. He's going to die, and no matter how much of a pervert he is, he can't change that fact. After hearing Lisa's words, Riz Lord Ryuk completely lost faith in life. Not that he had much to begin with, considering his entire existence was a joke. Even though she basically told him he was living on borrowed time, she also said she could help him survive if he behaved. So, just like that, the idiot had no choice but to follow orders. Meanwhile, his house was now a pile of rubble. No girls, no fun, just a pile of destruction. Life really had it out for him. Lisa then collapsed from exhaustion because apparently, even Grim Reapers have stamina problems. Riz Lord Ryuk, being the degenerate he was, considered taking advantage of the situation. But then his 2 remaining brain cells reminded him that prison wouldn't be kind to someone as weak as him, so he decided to be useful for once and restored Lisa's energy instead. With her power back, Lisa casually repaired his house like it was some home renovation show. Riz Lord Ryuk felt a rare moment of happiness. His personal cave was back, and he had technically helped. But it had been a long day, and even a worthless waste of oxygen like him needed sleep. The next morning, Riz Lord Ryuk woke up and immediately noticed something was off. Specifically, his little soldier was standing at attention. As expected, Lisa had sucked up his energy while he was sleeping, draining him like a cursed battery. She was already in the living room, now dressed in a school uniform. She announced that to find the Exceptional One, she would be attending his school. Riz Lord Ryuk, still trying to process how his life had gone from boring to absolute chaos in 24 hours, just stood there like a malfunctioning robot. Lisa, in her usual way, told him not to worry, since his condition would go back to normal in a few days. As if that made anything better. Outside, Mina was waiting for Riz Lord Ryuk so they could walk to school together. But the moment she saw Lisa, her face scrunched up like she had smelled something rotten. The 2 girls introduced themselves, and Lisa quickly realized that Mina had a decent amount of energy. Not enough to be the chosen one, but still better than the walking failure standing next to her. At school, Lisa wasted no time making new connections. The problem was, everyone she met was just as disappointing as Riz Lord Ryuk. That was until a loudmouth idiot strolled up to her. This clown, who happened to be Riz Lord Ryuk's friend, proudly declared himself as the #1 guy at the school. Lisa responded in the most efficient way possible, by punching him straight in the face and telling him to get lost. The so-called #1 ran off, probably questioning all his life choices. Lisa then told Riz Lord Ryuk that to find the right person, they would need to recruit students with strong energy. What followed was the most embarrassing selection process in history. There was a guy who could eat noodles while balancing a gun on his head, another freak who played the flute with his nose, and a 4-eyed disaster who proudly announced that he had never changed his underwear. The moment Lisa touched the last guy's hand, she regretted everything. His hand felt like it was carrying a lifetime of bad decisions, and she had to wash her own hand at least 77 times just to feel normal again. After wasting time with all these weirdos, they still hadn't found anyone useful. But then, they ran into Selena, another Grim Reaper from Lisa's clan. Even though they weren't related, the two saw each other as sisters. AniRizzler Ryuk, being the absolute bottom feeder he was, ignored their reunion and just ogled both of them like they were rare collector's items. Lisa, already used to his stupidity, handed him yet another beating to remind him of his place. Selena had actually come with important news. She had found the exceptional one. And to everyone's horror, it was none other than the clown Lisa had punched earlier. AniRizzler Ryuk, who had absolutely no qualifications to question anything, refused to believe it. But before they could argue, a bunch of disgusting tentacle monsters appeared out of nowhere and attacked them. Selena held them off so the others could escape. Meanwhile, the so-called Chosen One stood there, looking even more useless than AniRizzler Ryuk, which was honestly an achievement. Turns out, Selena had set everything up. She had already found Tamano and made a deal with him. She had even asked him to shake Lisa's hand, which was apparently important for some reason. AniRizzler Ryuk, still in denial, insisted that this guy was just another idiot and not the one they were looking for. Selena tried to get them to calm down, but Tamano refused to cooperate. Out of options, Selena used brute force to make them shake hands. The moment their hands touched, Lisa realized this guy was not the exceptional one at all. To make matters worse, Lisa got sealed away, and Tamano had his memories erased by Selena's powers. AniRizzler Ryuk, seeing Lisa in trouble, immediately jumped onto her like a leech and somehow broke the seal. With Lisa free, the two of them transformed into Grim Reapers and created a barrier around the area. That's when the truth came out. Selena wasn't here for a friendly chat. She wanted to defeat Lisa and put an end to their clan's history. But since she had wasted most of her power, she was now as weak as AniRizzler Ryuk on a good day. To stop the fight, AniRizzler Ryuk, in his infinite stupidity, did what he did best. He grabbed both of their chests. His reasoning? Girls shouldn't fight. They should be gentle and delicate. Lisa, already fed up, was about to send him straight to the afterlife, but before she could, she felt a surge of power. AniRizzler Ryuk's perverted energy had transferred into her, making her ridiculously strong. With one move, Lisa easily defeated Selena. Unfortunately, their victory came with a cost. They had completely destroyed the school, again proving that AniRizzler Ryuk's existence brought nothing but chaos. Lisa, needing more of his ridiculous power, took another dose of his energy to fix the damage. When they got home, they noticed the lights were on. Instead of being normal people and knocking, they both grabbed weapons and charged in like lunatics ready to fight. But instead of an enemy, they found Mina inside. She had come to check on them, but after seeing their ridiculous behavior, she immediately knew they were hiding something. AniRizzler Ryuk, proving that he had no survival instincts, spilled everything. Surprisingly, Mina believed him. She had already seen Lisa use teleportation at school and noticed strange things in AniRizzler Ryuk's house. Lisa then clarified her relationship with AniRizzler Ryuk. They weren't close, just business partners. If anything, she had zero interest in someone as pathetic as him. Even though Lisa made it painfully clear that he was nothing special, AniRizzler Ryuk still felt happy. Like a car needing gas, Lisa needed his perverted energy to survive. That meant, for once in his sad existence, he was actually useful. Lisa came up with a genius plan. She was going to shake hands with every single person in the school to measure their energy. Instead of using magic or some high-tech device, she decided to go full caveman mode and do it by hand. Mina, who somehow had more knowledge than the actual Grim Reaper, said there were only 8 exceptional people in the school. One of them was likely to be the Chosen One. Their first stop was a girl with heterochromia, which sounded cool until she opened her mouth. This absolute weirdo had the ability to calculate a girl's measurements with just one look. AniRizzler Ryuk, the disgrace to humanity, was starstruck. To him, this was the ultimate life goal. He, a mere peasant, was standing before a god-tier pervert. His dumbass rushed forward, hoping to shake her hand, but she rejected him like he was the last slice of dry pizza at a party. She had standards, apparently. According to her twisted philosophy, she would only shake hands with girls who had a chest size of at least 80 centimeters. Anyone below that? Non-existent. Then, just to flex, she revealed Lisa's exact measurement, 70 centimeters. Lisa, who had already suffered enough humiliation, was now downgraded to a literal flat-screen TV. Then came Iria, a model for a life insurance company. Apparently, she was what this freak considered the ideal woman. Lord Ryuk, thinking he was some kind of measurement expert, declared that Iria's size was 90. But surprise, he was wrong again. She was actually 92. His last two brain cells couldn't handle the shock. Things escalated because, of course, they did. Lord Ryuk challenged the measurement freak to a bet. Tomorrow, at Iria's signing event, they would find out if her size was actually 92.5. Meanwhile, Lord Ryuk, the idiot, had to verify if Lisa really was 70. This was the dumbest bet in history, but since everyone involved was an idiot, it moved forward. Mina, in the meantime, was in class when she saw her parents acting weird. Turns out, some demonic spirit had taken over their bodies. This lovely home invader had one simple goal: crashing at Mina's place for free. Because apparently, ghosts also need a place to squat. Since Mina's soul was somehow built like a tank, the spirit decided to form a temporary contract with her. Lisa, being the only sane one, protested. But then she remembered that she had also scammed Lord Ryuk into a contract using cheap seduction tactics, hypocrisy at its finest. Meanwhile, the spirit, now named Ju, wiped the minds of Mina's parents to make them believe she was just a normal exchange student. The level of deception happening here was truly next level. The next day, they arrived at Iria's signing event. Lord Ryuk, being the walking trash he was, couldn't possibly miss out on this opportunity. After taking a long, shameless look, they confirmed the truth. Iria's size wasn't 92, it was 92.5. Lord Ryuk was defeated yet again, a true loser in every possible way. But the real twist came when Iria accidentally discovered the true target. It wasn't her. It was the heterochromia girl who had been with them all along. Turns out, she wasn't just some freak with a weird hobby. She was also a Grim Reaper. And not just any Grim Reaper. She was Lisa's old class rival. Lisa had been the #1 student back in Grim Reaper school, while Iria, the measurement queen, was stuck at number 2. Clearly, the universe was playing a joke on this girl. She could calculate bust sizes with godlike precision, but couldn't beat Lisa in school. What a tragic backstory. Lord Ryuk, who had spent the whole time worshipping Iria like some holy figure, was devastated. His measurement goddess was actually a Grim Reaper. He wasn't just heartbroken, he was shattered. He was betrayed by his own kind, perverts. But the final nail in the coffin? Iria's bust size completely destroyed Lisa's. In academics, she was second. In measurements, she was the ultimate champion. Lord Ryuk, the shameless worm, immediately wanted to surrender. Lisa and Iria wasted no time and jumped straight into a fight. The difference in power was obvious. Without Lord Ryuk's dumb energy boost, Lisa was getting tossed around like a rag doll. Clothes shredded, body beaten, she was on the verge of total defeat. Iria was ready to deliver the final blow. That's when Lord Ryuk, the absolute moron, jumped in to take the hit for Lisa. This idiot, who had never done anything useful in his entire life, actually threw himself into the line of fire. While coughing up blood, he delivered the most nonsense speech anyone had ever heard. He claimed that bust size didn't matter. Every woman was beautiful in their own way. As long as they existed, that was enough. And just like that, he collapsed. Lisa, for the 100th time, was forced to take Lord Ryuk's power. And just like before, his perverted energy made her ridiculously strong. With just one attack, she obliterated Iria, sending her flying. The fight was over. Once again, the power of pure degeneracy had won the day. The most ridiculous part? They had completely destroyed the signing event in the process. Tables overturned, banners ripped apart, chaos everywhere. Lord Ryuk, the absolute embarrassment, was somehow still alive. Meanwhile, Lisa took another dose of his cursed power and restored everything. One thing was clear. This idiot wasn't going anywhere. As long as Lisa needed his energy, he would continue existing as the worst human being alive. The next day was even more ridiculous than usual when Iria suddenly transferred to Lord Ryuk's school. The second she stepped into class, the three biggest losers in the room lost their minds. These fools, who had never even been within 5 feet of a woman, suddenly had an actual goddess standing before them. They went full caveman mode, their brains shutting down as they let out high-pitched screams that probably scared the birds outside. And then, chaos. Every guy in school lined up like they were waiting for free money, all just to shake her hand. The line stretched so far that some students had to use Google Maps to find the end of it. Lord Ryuk, of course, was right in the middle, acting like this was his only chance at salvation. Meanwhile, Lisa and Araya ended up on the rooftop, where they were about to throw hands. But then, the human roadblock himself, Lord Ryuk, got in the way. This man wasn't just useless. He was actively ruining everything. Lisa folded her arms and pouted like a 5-year-old who just got her toy stolen. Iria, on the other hand, saw an opportunity. This was her moment. This was her plan. She knew Lord Ryuk was the biggest degenerate on the planet, and with her 92-centimeter weapons, she was about to break his brain in half. Unlike Lisa, who always had a murder face, Iria knew how to play the game. Lisa saw where this was going and mentally checked out of existence. Iria wasted no time. She grabbed Lord Ryuk by the collar and dragged him off like she was about to take him to another world. And where did she bring him? The girls' locker room. Lord Ryuk's soul left his body. This was it. This was the moment his ancestors had been waiting for. Then, as if the gods of degeneracy had personally blessed him, Iria pressed herself against him. Lord Ryuk, the luckiest cockroach in human history, was on the verge of shedding tears of joy. Meanwhile, back in reality, actual problems were happening. Monsters decided that today was the perfect day to attack the school. Lisa and Relina rushed in to fight, but without Lord Ryuk's perverted energy, they were weaker than a wet napkin. Within minutes, they got absolutely destroyed. While those two were out there getting beaten like a broken drum, Iria was checking Lord Ryuk's energy levels, only to realize something horrifying. This man was still completely useless. After all that effort, all that disgusting behavior, nothing. Lord Ryuk had the power levels of a dead phone battery, a walking power outage. Mina, after running around like a headless chicken, finally found Lord Ryuk and told him to get his useless self upstairs because Lisa was getting bodied. Lord Ryuk, remembering that he was technically the main character, ran to the rooftop, and by save Lisa, he meant standing there awkwardly and trying to transfer his power to her. Spoiler alert, nothing happened. His power was so weak that Lisa couldn't even absorb a single drop. But then, fate took pity on this fool. A monster's attack shredded Lisa's clothes, and just like that, everything was out in the open. Lord Ryuk, the human embodiment of filth, took one look and instantly recharged to full power. Lisa, now one breath away from strangling him, had no choice but to take his disgusting energy. And in that moment, Lord Ryuk realized the horrifying truth. He was only useful when Lisa was half naked. That was his one and only contribution to society. He had officially become the most shameful existence on Earth. The moment Lisa was fully powered up, she did what she should have done 5 episodes ago. She sliced through the monster in one hit. The battle was over, but the real disaster was yet to come. Because in all the chaos, the biggest scam of the century was revealed. Iria's chest was fake. That's right. This entire time, she had been using silicone implants, and without them, she was flatter than Lisa. Lord Ryuk, who had spent the last 24 hours worshipping her like some kind of divine being, stood there in pure betrayal. His so-called goddess of perfection was nothing but a scam artist. The entire school now knew the truth. The fallout was massive. And that was how the first part of this disaster finally came to an end. But of course, because Lord Ryuk was the king of bad decisions, he decided that now was the perfect time to ask the dumbest question possible. Does this mean Lisa still has the biggest chest in class? Lisa, who was already at her limit, turned around and hit him with the punch of the century. AniRizzler Ryuk was sent flying across the rooftop, straight into a concrete wall. Mina and Relina stood there nodding in approval, while Iria simply adjusted her fake chest and acted like nothing happened. And just like that, part 1 of this nonsense finally ended. But as everyone stood there, bruised, exhausted, and fed up, there was one thing they all knew for sure. This was only the beginning of AniRizzler Ryuk's legendary stupidity. And with that, the curtain closed on part 1 of this absolute disaster of a journey. The story continues, and this time, the narrator had to waste 24 minutes of their life watching AniRizzler Ryuk, the disgrace of humanity, struggle to become something other than a complete failure. Meanwhile, Selena was out for a peaceful walk when she stumbled upon AniRizzler Ryuk and Lisa, fighting another hentai tentacle monster. And as always, with AniRizzler Ryuk around, Lisa only needed one move to turn the creature into dust. The problem? Using her power drained all her energy again. AniRizzler Ryuk, the human-shaped parasite, saw Lisa collapse and had a revelation, a rare moment of his 2 brain cells working together. The next morning, this absolute buffoon was seen in the library, studying like his life depended on it. Mina and Selena, unable to believe that AniRizzler Ryuk was willingly looking at something other than women, decided to spy on him. They saw him flipping through books like he was solving the mysteries of the universe. Mina, who had more faith in miracles than logic, thought he might be researching his hidden potential. Lisa, who had no time for whatever midlife crisis AniRizzler Ryuk was having, invited him to go out and find the chosen one, but AniRizzler Ryuk, the proud idiot, refused. He had plans, probably the first time in history that this fool had a schedule. He walked away without explaining anything, leaving Lisa completely confused. Later that day, Lisa, Mina, and Selena spotted AniRizzler Ryuk again, still reading. This time, he was counting the pages like he had just learned how numbers worked. That night, Selena broke into AniRizzler Ryuk's house while he was sleeping, probably hoping to find some clue about his sudden change in behavior. But instead of something useful, she found him mumbling nonsense in his sleep. Then things got worse. AniRizzler Ryuk, while fully unconscious, was somehow still studying. Selena, disturbed beyond belief, leaned in closer, only to hear him whisper something so cursed that she ran for her life. The next morning, Lisa saw AniRizzler Ryuk still sitting there, still reading, still being weird. She finally checked the title of the book and realized it was about fish mating habits. Lisa, after a long day of searching for the chosen one and finding absolutely nothing, was already in a bad mood. AniRizzler Ryuk, now fully embracing his NPC lifestyle, ignored everything she said, making her even more frustrated. Just when Lisa was about to explode, Mina and Selena showed up. Lisa, completely fed up, stormed out of the house. AniRizzler Ryuk, now panicking, ran after her to explain. But before he could reach her, another tentacle monster appeared and attacked Lisa. Meanwhile, AniRizzler Ryuk felt something weird inside his chest, like something was trying to break free. But instead of dealing with it, he kept running. Lisa, without AniRizzler Ryuk's energy-boosting perversion, ran out of power immediately and got bodied, in record time. Just as she was about to get crushed, AniRizzler Ryuk finally arrived, ready to play the hero. He distracted the monster just long enough for Lisa to escape, then transferred his energy to her like the walking power bank that he was. But the monster wasn't done. Instead of going after AniRizzler Ryuk and Lisa, it turned its attention to Mina and Selena. Lisa, now fully charged, managed to set up a barrier just in time. AniRizzler Ryuk, finally realizing how useless he had been lately, apologized to Lisa for ignoring her. He explained that he had been training so that he wouldn't be a weakling anymore. Then, in a moment of pure overconfidence, he transformed. Or at least, that's what he thought happened. Selena, standing nearby, was so shocked that she fainted on the spot. But the truth? AniRizzler Ryuk hadn't transformed into anything. The real reason he had been locked up in the library all week was much dumber than anyone could have imagined. He had been reading adult magazines. This absolute clown had spent all his time flipping through swimsuit catalogs and studying mature content so he could recover his energy faster. His grand plan? to make sure he could transfer his disgusting power to Lisa at any time. And unfortunately, it worked. Every time Lisa ran out of energy, AniRizzler Ryuk just had to do something perverted, and bam, instant recharge. But this time, things weren't so simple. The monster they were facing was water-based, which meant it countered Lisa's fire powers. No matter how hard she attacked, her flames had no effect. Before long, both she and AniRizzler Ryuk got grabbed. AniRizzler Ryuk, ever the weakling, immediately got choked out. His body went limp, and Lisa, seeing him like that, thought he was actually dead. She blamed herself. But in true AniRizzler Ryuk fashion, this idiot wasn't dead. He had just passed out dramatically. When he suddenly woke up, he pulled out a broken sword that had been inside him this whole time. With one single move, he obliterated the monster instantly. Lisa, completely stunned, realized that the missing piece of the legendary sword had somehow ended up inside AniRizzler Ryuk. And how did AniRizzler Ryuk react? He immediately passed out again. Meanwhile, the real villain of the story was watching from the shadows. Now that the sword fragment had been found, things were about to get even more insane. When AniRizzler Ryuk finally woke up, Mina suggested that he and Lisa shake hands and make up. But Lisa, still mad, wasn't having it. Seeing this, Selena tried to step in and take Lisa's place. Lisa, not about to let that happen, immediately grabbed AniRizzler Ryuk and refused to let him go. Now, instead of making up, the two sisters were literally fighting over him. And just like that, the story ended with Lisa and Selena ready to kill each other over AniRizzler Ryuk, the luckiest waste of space to ever exist. Lisa finally explained the whole situation to AniRizzler Ryuk. That broken sword stuck inside him wasn't just any random piece of trash. It was actually the missing part of her own weapon, the one she had used to stab this idiot back in part 1. AniRizzler Ryuk, the human sponge, vaguely remembered hearing something about this before. Apparently, Iria had already mentioned it back in the girls' locker room. But since AniRizzler Ryuk's brain had the memory capacity of a goldfish, it took this long for the information to click. And then, as if being summoned by the sheer stupidity in the air, Iria popped up out of nowhere. With nothing better to do, she had decided to bring food over for everyone. But when she learned that the missing half of the legendary sword was literally inside AniRizzler Ryuk, she was just as shocked as everyone else. Since figuring out what was going on required actual thinking, the group decided to consult someone smarter. That led them straight to AniRizzler Ryuk's mom. Now, this was where things got even dumber. AniRizzler Ryuk's mom was minding her business when she got a call from her son, telling her to prepare for a visit. Moments later, this disgrace arrived at her doorstep, bringing an entire harem of girls with him. AniRizzler Ryuk's mom, instead of questioning why her useless son was suddenly surrounded by women, looked absolutely thrilled. Her son, who had spent his whole life being single and pathetic, had somehow managed to bring home a full squad. Lisa, now officially tired of all this nonsense, forced everyone to shut up and focus. Finally, AniRizzler Ryuk's mom started telling her story. Years ago, on a rainy day, she was walking home from university when she spotted a mysterious man standing in the rain with no umbrella. The guy had no memory, no name, and no idea where he came from. AniRizzler Ryuk's mom, proving that reckless decisions run in the family, decided to take him in. And then, in classic tragic romance fashion, the two started living together. The guy was ridiculously handsome, had long hair covering one eye, and just radiated main character energy. So of course, things escalated. One night she made a bad decision, and 10 months later, AniRizzler Ryuk was born. AniRizzler Ryuk, the world's biggest embarrassment, listened to this story like he was watching a K-drama. The romance, the mystery, the rain. It was all too much for his peanut-sized brain to handle. Meanwhile, his mom continued, explaining that she had named the guy Susuke, the same name as her son. And then came the real twist. AniRizzler Ryuk's dad wasn't dead. His mom admitted that she had lied about his father's death. AniRizzler Ryuk had been living a scam since birth. She had no idea where his dad was now, but she remembered the last time she saw him. That day, he had been acting strangely quiet. While they were embracing, he suddenly stabbed her with the broken sword. Yes, the same sword AniRizzler Ryuk had inside him now. She had blacked out, and when she woke up, she was perfectly fine, but her husband was gone. Before leaving, he had said something cryptic about having unfinished business and left the sword behind for their child. And just like that, he disappeared. Lord Ryuk, finally realizing how much his mother had struggled to raise him alone, actually thanked her. A miracle. But the real shocker? This whole situation wasn't just a coincidence. According to everything they had just learned, Lord Ryuk had inherited the missing half of the sword while he was still in the womb. And that meant one thing: the two pieces had to be fused back together. So, right then and there, Lord Ryuk made a contract with Lisa, merging the sword halves into a single, complete weapon. And then came yet another revelation. If Lord Ryuk's dad had come from Lisa's world, then that meant he wasn't just some random guy. He was connected to the legend. When the sword was fully restored, the person who wielded it would gain godlike power and become the ultimate hero. In other words, Lord Ryuk, this walking disgrace, was now destined to be the world's savior. Lord Ryuk, completely ignoring the weight of this responsibility, spent the rest of the night hugging his Iria-shaped body pillow and flipping through adult magazines. Lisa, meanwhile, stood outside, deep in thought. She couldn't believe that this moron had actually awakened such an important power. But more than that, she was worried, because Lord Ryuk only had 2 months left to live. The next morning, the group faced a new problem. A monster that could split into multiple copies of itself. The more they attacked it, the more it multiplied. To make things worse, it absorbed energy from Grim Reapers, acting like a parasite. Lord Ryuk, of course, had the dumbest solution possible. Instead of fighting like a normal person, he activated his pervert energy by imagining Lisa and Iria in the bathhouse together. This immediately generated a huge amount of power, which he then transferred to Lisa. But there was a tiny problem. The more he used this power, the weaker he became. His dumbass was on the verge of passing out, but he kept going. He didn't care if he died. He just wanted to protect Lisa. Lisa, now absolutely pissed off, snapped. She yelled at him, reminding him that his only job was to find the chosen one, not throw his life away. And now, on top of everything else, he had forgotten that he was supposed to die in 3 months. This idiot was wasting his short lifespan just to impress her. Lisa, overwhelmed, actually cried. And that was when it happened. Lord Ryuk's sword awakened. The tears of a woman unlocked his full power, and he immediately slashed through the monsters, wiping them out in an instant. But the real threat was still watching from the shadows. The moment Lord Ryuk activated his power, the final boss knew that things had just gotten serious. The battle ended. But before they could even breathe, something even worse happened. The villain, Kaza, appeared out of nowhere and kidnapped Mina. This guy, one of the main antagonists, had been waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, he had a hostage. His goal? To drag everyone back to Lisa's world. Lord Ryuk, still confused as always, had no idea who this guy was. But one thing was clear: he had to save Mina. And with that, their next journey was about to begin. The squad was finally heading to the enemy's world to cause chaos and rescue Mina. But before they could do that, they needed a plan. Running in blindly was basically asking to get turned into minced meat. So, the first step was heading back to Lisa's mother's place to strategize. But, of course, Lord Ryuk, the king of dumb decisions, was ready to ignore all logic and charge straight in like a headless chicken. With his perverted energy and the legendary sword in his hand, he was convinced he could solo the entire enemy base. Everyone else just sighed, fully expecting this fool to die within the first 5 minutes. Meanwhile, Mina was still locked up at the top of the enemy's tower. She had finally figured out what Kaza wanted: to take over the human world and steal a lost royal treasure, the legendary sword. And just when things couldn't get worse, Mina realized that Lord Ryuk might have been betrayed. Lord Ryuk, despite awakening his sword's power, was still struggling like a total loser. He barely managed to take down a few weak guards before immediately getting himself into trouble. Just as he was about to get hit with a finishing move, Selena rushed in and took the hit for him. And just like that, she was bleeding out. They were completely surrounded. The monsters were closing in, ready to stomp them both into the ground. Then, out of nowhere, Iria and Lisa teamed up, combining their abilities to unleash a massive attack that wiped out every enemy in sight. With the trash taken out, they grabbed Riz Lord Ryuk and Selena and dragged them back to safety. When Riz Lord Ryuk finally woke up, the first thing he saw was Lisa's mom. And, being the disgusting waste of space that he was, he immediately focused on her big juicy water jugs. Lisa, seeing his stupid face, didn't even hesitate. She decked him straight in the mouth. And just like that, the idiot was unconscious again. When he woke up again, Lisa introduced him to everyone present, her mother and the maids. Her mom, seeing Lisa bring a man home, was beyond impressed. She even called her daughter bold for pulling such a move. Lisa, already at her limit, shut that down immediately, clarifying that Riz Lord Ryuk was nothing but a temporary co-worker. Lisa's mom, ignoring all of that, simply commented that Lisa might have a small chest, but no one could match her fighting spirit. The conversation then moved on to the main issue. Lisa still hadn't found the chosen one, and on top of that, Mina had gotten caught in the mess. But since the past couldn't be changed, they decided to move forward and focus on the most important thing, restoring Riz Lord Ryuk's energy. Lisa's mom then personally ordered the maids to help Riz Lord Ryuk recover, and by recover, that meant way too much physical contact. Riz Lord Ryuk, the lucky cockroach, was immediately surrounded by the maids, who started touching him to transfer energy. His face was buried in certain places, and he, of course, fully enjoyed the experience. Lisa's mom, instead of stopping it, just stood there admiring the show. After all that, Riz Lord Ryuk's body was healed, but his mind was still traumatized from almost getting sent to the afterlife. Lisa's mom reassured him that the enemy couldn't find them here, as the place was completely protected. Lisa, having had enough of Riz Lord Ryuk's existence, had already planned her next move. She would team up with Iria to rescue Mina. And most importantly, Riz Lord Ryuk was not invited. Because if he went, he'd just be handing the legendary sword to the enemy. If they failed, Selena would take over and continue the mission. So, sticking to the plan, Lisa and Iria set off alone to get Mina back. Meanwhile, Mina was lost in thought. She started remembering her childhood memories with Riz Lord Ryuk, how they had gone to school together, and all the time they had spent as friends. Even though Riz Lord Ryuk was a pathetic pervert, he had always been kind to her. She had finally made up her mind. She was going to confess her feelings, but just as she was about to say it, a loud train passed by and completely ruined the moment. Riz Lord Ryuk, being the dense moron that he was, misunderstood the situation entirely, and just like that, Mina still didn't get the chance to confess. Back at the house, Selena, now left alone with Riz Lord Ryuk, saw her opportunity. That night, she snuck into his room, wearing nothing. Riz Lord Ryuk, waking up to this unexpected situation, completely froze. His brain, which was already barely functioning on a normal day, completely shut down. Selena, seeing his stupid face, went straight to the point. She wanted him. Right here. Right now. And just like that, the story ended on the dumbest cliffhanger possible. Would Riz Lord Ryuk actually do it with Selena? The story continues, and this time, Selena had climbed onto Riz Lord Ryuk's bed and told him to take her right then and there. The situation escalated so fast that Riz Lord Ryuk, the king of brain lag, had no idea how to react. Before he could even process what was happening, they were already tangled up, swapping spit like two teenagers in a bad romance drama. Meanwhile, Lisa and Iria were preparing to infiltrate the enemy's tower, but before charging in, they needed backup. So, after a long session of begging and pleading, they finally got a group of soldiers to agree to hold off the enemy forces outside while they sneaked into the base. Back in Riz Lord Ryuk's room, just when it seemed like things were about to get serious, Riz Lord Ryuk, the world's most disappointing protagonist, suddenly backed out. Even though every fiber of his being screamed for him to go for it, he somehow managed to resist. Not because of morals, not because of honor, but because he wasn't ready. Riz Lord Ryuk, proving once again that he was the least qualified person to have multiple women chasing him, admitted he had zero interest in Selena. And just like that, he ruined the moment. It didn't take long for him to figure out why Selena had pulled this stunt in the first place. She had only tried to keep him distracted so Lisa could rush into enemy territory without worrying about him getting himself killed. Riz Lord Ryuk, now left alone with his thoughts, finally took a second to reflect on everything Lisa had been through. All the times she had fought, all the burdens she had carried. He finally understood what she had been dealing with. And just like that, his brain finally rebooted, and he regained his fighting spirit. Meanwhile, Mina, who had been stuck in the enemy's tower, was done with being a useless hostage. Determined not to be a burden, she decided to escape by climbing down the balcony. At the same time, the battlefield below had turned into absolute chaos. Even though the soldiers were trying their best, they were getting destroyed by the enemy forces. It was a massacre, bodies dropping left and right. Then, because things weren't bad enough, a stray bullet flew straight toward Mina. She barely had time to react before she fell. As she plummeted, memories of Riz Lord Ryuk flashed through her mind. Every moment they had shared, every dumb thing he had done, she realized something. She didn't have much time left, so she did the only thing she could. She screamed his name and confessed her feelings. And then, in the most unexpected plot twist of the century, she awakened her true power. The sheer amount of energy bursting from her body was so intense that the entire area lit up. Turns out, Mina was the chosen one Lisa had been searching for all along. Meanwhile, Lisa and Iria had finally made it inside the enemy's base. But something felt off. Lisa could tell right away that they had walked straight into a trap. And the mastermind behind it all? Iria. This traitor had sold them out, leading Lisa straight into a room filled with monsters. And with no Riz Lord Ryuk around, Lisa couldn't use her full power. It didn't take long before she got captured and tortured by the creatures. Back at the house, Riz Lord Ryuk was ready to charge in and save Lisa. But before he could leave, Lisa's mother stepped in to stop him, and this was where things got weird. Instead of reasoning with him, Lisa's mother tried to seduce him, using certain big, juicy water jugs to keep him in place. Riz Lord Ryuk, being the world's luckiest virgin, was completely shaken. Even the narrator couldn't believe what was happening. But for once in his miserable life, Riz Lord Ryuk actually resisted. He had finally realized something. He could only use his power at full strength when he was with Lisa. That meant the only way to save her was to be by her side. So, instead of getting distracted, he drew his sword and committed to the mission. He was going to rescue Lisa. And surprisingly, he wasn't the only one. After thinking things over, Iria, despite being a traitor, decided she couldn't let Lisa die just like that. Even though they were rivals, she wanted a fair fight. So, while Iria stayed behind to hold off the monsters, Lisa took off to find Mina. Meanwhile, Lisa's mother and the others remained at the house, waiting for news of the battle. And just like that, the final confrontation was set in motion. Rizlis Kaza was done playing around. With just one hit, he sent Lisa flying, leaving her body covered in burns. She was out of energy, barely able to move. Rizlis Kaza, seeing her in this pathetic state, raised his demonic sword, ready to end it all. But of course, Riz Lord Ryuk, the king of reckless decisions, jumped in like the useless hero he was pretending to be. Holding his legendary sword, he blocked the attack and stood between Lisa and Rizlis Kaza. And just like that, he started running his mouth. He went on and on about how he was the main character, how he would defeat Rizlis Kaza, how he would protect Lisa at all costs. Rizlis Kaza, instead of immediately finishing him off, decided to humor the idiot. The two clashed swords, exchanging attacks, but the difference was painfully clear. Rizlis Kaza, a master of his cursed sword, completely dominated Riz Lord Ryuk. He could have ended this fight in seconds, but instead, he just sat back in his chair like this was all a joke. He explained that what he really wanted wasn't to kill Riz Lord Ryuk. It was the legendary sword. His own demonic blade couldn't open the dimensional gate, but the sacred sword could. Since the prophecy claimed that the sacred sword could defeat him, Rizlis Kaza decided to test it out. He let Riz Lord Ryuk attack him freely. If Riz Lord Ryuk couldn't win, then the prophecy was just nonsense, and Rizlis Kaza would rewrite history himself. Lisa, seeing how stupid this was, begged Riz Lord Ryuk to stop. But of course, this idiot refused. Because, in his tiny brain, running away wasn't an option. He turned to Lisa, hugged her, and thanked her for everything. Then, he jumped back into battle. And suddenly, something changed. Riz Lord Ryuk, who had been struggling like a complete loser, was now dodging attacks and landing hits. Rizless Kaza, noticing the sudden power-up, was caught off guard. That's when Riz Lord Ryuk admitted the secret behind his strength. It was all thanks to his perverted actions. Just before the fight, when he hugged Lisa, he had gotten just enough stimulation to unlock his full potential. Rizless Kaza, hearing this absolute nonsense, actually paused for a moment, questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. Meanwhile, Riz Lord Ryuk, now fully powered by his degeneracy, kept imagining him and Lisa together, from dates to sharing a bed to sniffing her pillow while she slept. Every dirty thought made him stronger. And just like that, he one-shot Rizless Kaza's sword, cracking it with a single attack. Rizless Kaza, in complete shock, finally realized the power of the sacred sword. Riz Lord Ryuk, now at his absolute peak of disgusting confidence, focused all his perverted energy into one final holy light slash. And just like that, Rizless Kaza was defeated. But instead of being angry, Rizless Kaza actually respected Riz Lord Ryuk, because in the end, he hadn't been fighting just to be evil. He revealed the real reason behind everything. Humans were the real villains. They had thrown the balance of the world into chaos, draining all its energy, causing famine and war across both dimensions. Rizless Kaza had only been trying to fix it. But before Riz Lord Ryuk could even process any of that, Rizless Kaza dropped one last bombshell. Riz Lord Ryuk was the one who had caused all of this. The moment Riz Lord Ryuk activated the sacred sword, he destroyed the barrier separating the human world from the demon realm. Everything that had happened, every battle, every disaster, was all his fault, but there was no time to react. With his final words, Rizless Kaza wished Riz Lord Ryuk luck and told him to take responsibility for his actions. And then, a blinding green light engulfed the battlefield. When the light faded, Riz Lord Ryuk and the others found themselves back in the human world. But instead of relief, panic set in, because the world they had returned to was completely destroyed. Everything was in ruins, and just like that, Riz Lord Ryuk was left staring at the disaster he had created. Riz Lord Ryuk finally woke up after his battle with Rizless Kaza. Lisa and Selena, who were chilling in the living room, heard Mina scream and immediately ran in to check. Mina was practically crying because she thought Riz Lord Ryuk had died for good and gone to meet his ancestors. Apparently, this idiot had been unconscious for an entire week. Lisa had already prepared herself for the worst, just in case this fool never woke up. And honestly, after what happened in the last battle, it was a miracle he was still alive at all. Meanwhile, the world outside was an absolute mess. The combination of both realms had turned everything into a post-apocalyptic disaster, but at least the situation was somewhat under control. The bigger issue? Riz Lord Ryuk only had 2 weeks left to live. The group had already decided that they were going to find a way to save him, especially now that they had discovered Mina was the chosen one. As Riz Lord Ryuk lay there, contemplating his tragic fate, his 2 wives decided to cheer him up in the dumbest way possible. Lisa and Selena walked in, wearing nothing but aprons. They had even prepared a bowl of porridge, acting like personal maid service. Apparently, Selena had Googled ways to make men happy, and this was the result. Riz Lord Ryuk, instead of questioning anything, just sat back and enjoyed the view. Things escalated when Selena lifted her apron right in front of him. Luckily, Lisa had a swimsuit on underneath, or else someone in the room would have gone blind. Riz Lord Ryuk, the human embodiment of trash, loved every second of it. Right then, Iria walked in, still alive after her last battle. But before she could accidentally spill the truth about how bad the world had gotten, Lisa grabbed her and dragged her out of the room. Meanwhile, Riz Lord Ryuk was busy searching for something. At first, everyone assumed he was looking for his adult magazines, because of course, that would be his priority. Mina even mentioned that she had organized his stash on the shelf. Riz Lord Ryuk, now completely exposed as the biggest degenerate alive, realized he had way too much of that stuff. Mina, now flustered, admitted that she understood since he was a guy. But in reality, Riz Lord Ryuk wasn't looking for magazines. He was looking for his phone and his laptop, both of which were completely missing. Moments later, the truth was revealed. Mina had accidentally thrown his phone and entire laptop into the washing machine. while the dog sat there guarding the washing machine. Riz Lord Ryuk was too stunned to speak. Even Mina had no idea how she had managed to put both a phone and a whole-ass laptop into a washing machine. At this point, they just accepted it as an unsolved mystery. Meanwhile, Iria had officially moved in because she refused to live alone. And just like that, Riz Lord Ryuk's harem gained another member. Before coming here, she had made a contract with Riz Lord Ryuk's dog, which somehow made things even weirder. But something felt off. Riz Lord Ryuk noticed a strange smell. Then he realized something even worse. His 60-inch flat-screen TV was missing. Lisa casually explained that since they were broke, she had sold it. But in reality, she had hidden it in her room. At this point, Riz Lord Ryuk was sure something sketchy was going on. So he decided to leave the house and go to a nearby cafe to check the news and see what had happened while he was unconscious. But before he could leave, the group forced him to stay and play strip poker. Riz Lord Ryuk, the absolute menace, immediately agreed. Because the moment he heard the word strip, all thoughts of leaving vanished. The game began, and as expected, Riz Lord Ryuk was getting the most ridiculous luck of all time. One by one, the girls lost. Clothes started coming off. And then, it finally happened. Lisa lost the next round. And the rule was whoever lost had to remove their top. Lisa, despite being furious, wasn't a coward. With absolute determination, she started taking off her bra. And right at that moment, Riz Lord Ryuk accidentally dropped a handful of hidden cards from his sleeve. The truth was out. Riz Lord Ryuk had been cheating this whole time. Before he could even process his mistake, Lisa punched him straight in the mouth. And just like that, he was knocked out again. While he was unconscious, a new character appeared. Her name was Diana, and she was a Grim Reaper. At first, Riz Lord Ryuk assumed she was another girl joining his harem, but he was dead wrong. Diana had only come for one reason, to remind Riz Lord Ryuk that he only had 2 weeks left to live. At first, Riz Lord Ryuk laughed it off, thinking she was joking. After all, Lisa and the others had promised they would save him. But then, Diana showed him the truth. Riz Lord Ryuk was the reason the world was in ruins. Everything was his fault. The moment he activated the legendary sword, he destroyed the barrier between both worlds, triggering the apocalypse. Diana then showed him everything that had happened while he was unconscious. Meanwhile, Lisa and the others were preparing to fully awaken Mina's power to save Riz Lord Ryuk. Riz Lord Ryuk, now fully aware of how badly he had screwed up, wanted to fight alongside the soldiers still battling outside. But with his remaining energy, it was impossible. Diana told him that once he died, she would be the one to take his soul. And for the first time, Riz Lord Ryuk realized he was completely powerless. He thought back to Rizlas Kaza's final words before he died. Rizlas Kaza had warned him that if he continued living, it would be unfair to everyone else. Lisa walked in and saw Riz Lord Ryuk awake. She immediately promised him that she wouldn't let him die. But the real question was, did Riz Lord Ryuk even deserve to live after everything he had done? Even as Lisa tried to encourage him, Riz Lord Ryuk had already accepted his fate. Lisa, however, refused to give up. She didn't care what had happened. She just wanted Riz Lord Ryuk to stay alive. And at that moment, Riz Lord Ryuk finally understood her feelings. But for Lisa, it wasn't about feelings. She just wanted Riz Lord Ryuk to accept Mina's power and choose to live. And so, the final question remained. Would Riz Lord Ryuk choose to stay alive and be with Lisa, or would he accept his death? The episode starts with the return of Riz Lord Ryuk's mother, who arrives home only to find her son lying on the couch with a white cloth over his face. Her heart stops. She thinks she's too late. But then the idiot starts snoring. Realizing her dumb son is just asleep, she grabs him by the collar and beats the life out of him for scaring her. Meanwhile, Riz Lord Ryuk's 4 wives gather to introduce themselves to his mother, and while he's outside playing with the dog, the girls secretly discuss how to save him. His mother, out of options, puts all her hope in Mina and the others to somehow fix this mess. Their plan? A date. Riz Lord Ryuk and Mina will go on a romantic outing, where Mina will confess her love, activating her full power to save his life. Lisa, ever supportive, punches him in the face for motivation before sending him off. Meanwhile, Mina prepares for the date. while the rest of the group hides in the background to make sure everything goes as planned. Selena even uses her powers to make the dog chase them, forcing them to hold hands. Lisa, watching from a distance, can only sulk as the two go on their fake date. Back at the house, Diana has a serious conversation with Rizlord Ryuk's mother, explaining that a person's fate is sealed from birth. Rizlord Ryuk is meant to die, and nothing can change that. But his mother refuses to accept it, believing there must be a way to save him. Meanwhile, on the date, Rizlord Ryuk and Mina do everything together, shopping, watching movies, eating, and playing games, with Lisa and the others spying the entire time. Even Iria notices something off about Lisa's behavior. After hours of following them, Lisa gives up and heads home early. Meanwhile, Rizlord Ryuk miraculously wins a stuffed animal for Mina at a crane game, and she, touched by the gesture, feeds him a bite of her ice cream. The moment is so sweet that the spies almost throw up. Lisa is gone, but Iria and Selena stay to continue watching. Then, disaster strikes. As Mina changes in a dressing room, Rizlord Ryuk, being the absolute menace he is, walks right in, and suddenly, Mina's huge chest is right in his face. Both of them freeze. The damage is done. After recovering from that disaster, they finish shopping and go to watch the sunset, the final step of their plan. Mina takes a deep breath and confesses her love. She has loved him since they were kids. The moment the words leave her mouth, a huge burst of energy radiates from her body. It works. For a moment, it seems like Rizlord Ryuk is saved, but then, nothing. Cut to Lisa lying in bed, lost in thought. Iria and Selena return with bad news. Rizlord Ryuk has rejected Mina. Lisa sits up, completely shocked. They were so close to saving him, and this idiot ruined everything. Mina, devastated, loses all of her power. Furious, Lisa storms out to confront Rizlord Ryuk. She demands to know why he betrayed Mina's feelings. Rizlord Ryuk, in his usual stupid way, just stands there and gives his answer, because the only person he has ever loved is Lisa. Ever since the first time they met, even though their first meeting was a mess, the time they spent together afterward made him fall for her. And now, with no time left, he has to tell her the truth. But Lisa doesn't care. She doesn't want to hear it. She needs him to apologize to Mina and accept her love, because if he doesn't, he's going to die. Lisa, desperate, begs him to just love Mina, for her, if not for himself. But at that moment, Rizlord Ryuk collapses. His time has run out. His mother had believed Lisa would save him, but she had been wrong. Selena runs back to the house to inform everyone. Rizlord Ryuk is dead. Lisa, standing over his body, whispers one final thought. Rizlord Ryuk was an idiot. Rizlord Ryuk's death should have been the end. But of course, nothing could ever be that simple. Diana, the Grim Reaper with no chill, stood over his lifeless body, ready to finally rid the world of this walking disaster. But the rest of the group, they weren't about to let this buffoon die so easily. And just like that, a full-on battle broke out. Diana versus everyone else. Lisa, Selena, Iria, and even Mina, all of them jumped in. Even if Rizlord Ryuk was a perverted moron, he was their perverted moron, and they weren't about to let some salary woman from hell take him away. Fists flew, magic exploded. Selena threw hands. Lisa swung a glowing weapon. Iria launched energy attacks. But Diana? She barely broke a sweat. Every attack was useless. The fight turned into a one-sided beatdown, with Diana effortlessly dodging everything and countering with ridiculous speed. One by one, they got knocked down. Mina, who had stayed back, suddenly felt her phone vibrate. A message from Rizlord Ryuk, sent right before he died. She opened it with shaking hands and read his final words. And then, she froze. He had heard her confession. That day, behind the school, when she poured her heart out, he had heard everything. But at the time, he had only seen her as a childhood friend. If things had been different, if they hadn't grown up as friends, maybe he would have fallen for her instead. He had always liked her, just in a way that wasn't romantic. Until now. And just like that, something snapped inside her. A wave of energy burst from her body, lighting up the entire battlefield. Mina had awakened. The others turned, stunned. Diana took a step back, actually impressed. Lisa saw her chance. With Diana distracted, she charged toward Lord Ryuk's body. They had one shot at bringing him back. They needed to pull his soul from the afterlife, and the only one strong enough to do it was Mina. Lisa grabbed the sacred weapon and plunged it into her own body, and just like that, she collapsed. Everyone froze. Diana actually paused, looking genuinely confused. Even she hadn't expected Lisa to go that far. The others rushed to Lisa's side, but she wasn't moving. Diana, realizing what had happened, shook her head. If Lisa didn't succeed in pulling Lord Ryuk's soul back, she would die too. In other words, they were both screwed. Selena, panicking, turned to Diana, asking how much time they had left. Diana just sighed and told them it was better if they didn't know, because it wasn't much. Meanwhile, Lisa was already inside the spiritual realm, searching for Lord Ryuk's dumb soul. The place was nothing but darkness, endless, empty, silent. Then, finally, she saw him. Lord Ryuk standing there like an idiot, completely confused. Lisa shouted his name, but of course, this clown was too dense to understand what was happening. He just blinked at her, scratching his head like a lost puppy. Lisa, out of patience, marched up and punched him in the face. That got his attention. Lisa told him to wake up. If he didn't, she would die too. And finally, something clicked in his tiny brain. Lord Ryuk's eyes widened. Lisa was actually here. Lisa was risking her life to bring him back. And right then, he felt something warm, her hand in his. Lisa, gripping his hand, told him she loved him. That was the final push. Lord Ryuk's body glowed. And then, he woke up. Gasping for air, Lord Ryuk sat up, feeling like he had just been hit by a truck. Lisa was right there, and the first thing she did, she punched him again. Then she started crying. Lord Ryuk, still half dead, just sat there in shock. He had actually survived, and all because of Lisa. A massive energy explosion erupted around them, lighting up the sky. The power of true love. The battle was over. They had won. A few weeks later, the world had finally settled down. Humans and Reapers were now coexisting. The chaos was over. And as for Lord Ryuk, he was back to being a perverted idiot. His biggest priority now? Figuring out how to spend more time with Lisa. Specifically, alone. His brilliant idea? Convince her to bathe with him. Lisa, already knowing where this was going, just rolled her eyes. Lord Ryuk, in full degenerate mode, started rambling about repopulation and fixing the birth rate. Lisa, already done with his nonsense, drop-kicked him. Iria, watching from a distance, punched him too. Lord Ryuk, now completely naked and half-conscious, just lay there on the ground, happy, because despite everything, he was still alive, and he still had his harem.